The Aeldari have a host of different units available to them, and sometimes amidst all the flashy things like aspect warriors, jet bikes, and flying tanks, the humble Guardian gets left behind. Well, no more. The new Aeldari Codex provides the detachment for those who want to put together an army themed around the citizen militia of the craft worlds, bringing some of the energy of older Ulthwé rules, but mostly carving out some new design space for the little guy. We'd like to thank Games Workshop for providing us with a preview copy of these rules for review purposes. If you'd like to read a written version of this review, head on over to goonhammer.com. Link in the description. Detachment Rule. Defend at all costs. Whenever a Guardian, Dire Avenger, Warwalker, or support weapon model makes an attack, if either their unit or the target is in range of an objective, the attack gets +1 to hit. This is a decent buff, and working in both directions makes this pretty easy to activate whenever you want it, though it's obviously somewhat constrained in what it affects. It encourages you to invest in the relevant units, and there are other things at play here which further encourage you to get onto objectives. It does suffer a bit from there being very few relevant sources of rerolls for this army, which is what you'd really like to combo this with, but it's certainly not bad. There is a particular incentive for going Ulthwé mode and bringing Eldrad for Doom, as stacking the +1 to hit and +1 to wound into a key target is gonna make them dead very quickly. The enhancements here provide some transformative tools that let you play a very different game with Guardians than is normally possible, and also a few useful utility tricks. Craftworld's Champion will give a model OC5. This is a little at odds with the units this detachment incentivizes, because Guardians already have good OC and they don't really need the help. Ethereal Pathway lets you pick 2 Guardian units during deployment to gain infiltrators. This is a key part of this detachment, and you definitely want to try to build around it. Once you've stacked a character, or even multiple, plus a support weapon and/or Warlock Conclave into a Guardian unit, they become a hefty threat, and being able to start 2 of those up the board, and support them with scouting Warwalkers, is potent. It also synergizes very effectively with the special abilities of both kinds of Guardian, with Defenders using their free fadeaway to protect themselves, and Storm Guardians sticking an objective in midfield, providing early momentum for such a control-oriented army. Protector of the Paths lets the bearer's unit overwatch for 0 command points, hitting on a 5-up rather than a 6-up, or 4-up if your unit is in objective range. This is flat out good, and it's good to infiltrate a D cannon to the mid-board, then threaten to overwatch with it on a 4-up if your opponent tries to get a line on it. Breath of Vol is a special buff for Storm Guardians, and it's even kind of okay. If the bearer is leading a Storm Guardian unit, they can reroll shots for their flamers and damage for their fusion guns. Storm Guardians are great. People never expect the spike threat they present, and this makes them a bit better. This detachment definitely needs good stratagems, as it encourages you to favor units that are not as naturally gifted at killing stuff as some of the more specialized units out there. Luckily, it very much gets those good stratagems. There's an extremely potent set of tools available for pretty much all of your needs. Warding Salvos gives your Guardians or Dire Avengers full rerolls to wound against a target on an objective for a phase. Please and thank you. This is particularly good with the Sermon's once per game pop-off, and unlike the detachment rule, this affects units rather than only appropriately keyworded models. Shield Nodes is another good one, giving your Guardians or Dire Avengers unit -1 to be wounded while they're within range of an objective. This is especially strong because Cost of Victory exists, and it makes an opponent narrowly missing the kill on some Guardians extremely bad for them. Vol's Vengeance lets one of your Warwalker units shoot after a Guardian or Dire Avenger unit goes down. This is hilarious when it goes off, and encourages you to run a 2-model Warwalker unit and some small units of Dire Avengers to maximize the chance of getting value from it. Because you can trigger this in your fight phase, you can also force the issue in some cases. There are plenty of things that you would absolutely like to put 4 Brightland shots into, which will also absolutely kill a Dire Avenger unit you charge them with. This isn't always going to come up, but you can sometimes make this happen in a way that is going to surprise your foes. Time to Strike lets a unit of Storm Guardians advance 6 inches and still shoot and charge. Storm Guardians still kinda suck when they get there, but this is a very powerful positional play. The shooting is the relevant part, and you can lean into it with characters if you want to. Just an Autarch with an extra fusion gun and some melee heft helps, but you could also go full torrent mode by attaching a 4-model Warlock Conclave. Blades of Asurion gives a unit pistol on its guns for a phase. This is surprisingly okay, as these are the kind of units that opponents can normally easily bully charge, and they often have reasonably good output, especially when you put a character in. Tragically, D cannons have blast, so you can't live the dream of point blanking someone with them, although in theory you could use a Vibro Cannon. Cost of Victory is used to pull an unengaged Guardians unit back into reserves, healing it in the process. This is extremely good. Just the baseline effect would be pretty alright, but reviving models makes this gravy. Although it won't revive a character or support weapon in the unit, it doesn't remove them if they haven't been destroyed yet, and D-cannons are something you're very excited to zap around the table. It's also synergistic with infiltrating guardians and shield nodes, as if a unit is down but not out, boom, they're suddenly better again. This detachment is completely out there, because the unit at its heart, Guardian Defenders, is one of the most configurable in 10th edition. You can squeeze almost an entire combat patrol's worth of models into one Doom stack, and then in this detachment, you can infiltrate it or pull it around the table with cost of victory. You have a nearly unique ability to just play like half the table as your deployment zone, but also plenty of cunning tricks to flummox the foe, and some pretty hefty durability and offensive boosts to boot. You want to use all of this to ensure that your opponent's army is walking on eggshells from turn 1, with one wrong move ready to completely smash them, and your threats somehow slipping through their grasp even when they seem to be right there. Now let's go over the strengths and weaknesses. Strong objective play. You've got a lot of cheap bodies with good OC. Powerful options to contest the mid-board early, especially with those infiltrating abilities. And some nasty ways to punish the foe if they pick the wrong fights. Now unfortunately, this doesn't encourage aspect warriors outside of dire Avengers, so you're leaving your best units on the shelf. Your tricks are also still keying off of squishy guardians, so if you mess up, you can die fast and hard. It's also pretty command point hungry to keep your units operating at peak efficiency. The Guardian Battlehost detachment is one of the more distinctive options in this new book, and it looks like a ton of fun to try out. There are a large number of different ways to run and outfit Guardians. While Guardians aren't the most exciting unit on their own, they have some interesting potential, and being able to stack them with other units can create some really eye-popping combos. If you'd like to read more about this detachment and check out a sample list, head on over to goonhammer.com. If you like what we do, you can also support us on Patreon for even more good stuff. I've been Storm McGuardian, fading back into strategic reserves to heal my wounded ego. Thanks for watching.